Hi, beautiful humans. Welcome. Happy National Public Lands Day. My name is Clare Kelley, and I'm coming to you from Tucson, Arizona, the tribal lands of the Tohono and Pascua Yaqui people. It's a difficult time, let's just say it out loud. And just like our natural spaces can be a beautiful and welcome place of refuge, we might in this time also consider that our bodies can be a place of refuge and can be allies for us. So we'll spend a little bit of time connecting to the land around us and connecting to ourselves. If you're ever wondering, am I doing it right? Yes, you are. And you might just hear my words reminding you of that. I'm going to be largely on the mat here. You can also adapt much of this to sitting in a chair or even standing. So however it works for you is the most advanced way to do this. So whenever you're ready, why don't we start lying down? And notice any position that feels particularly comfortable to you. And you might take knees together and walk feet wide or hug knees in. And take a moment and notice your body. You have this extraordinary conglomeration of molecules, millions of years of evolution. And so sensing that you have a body, and then feeling the density and volume of your body. And you might notice that the air has an inhale just waiting for you. What does it feel like to receive the gift from the air? And you might notice the feeling of support of the earth underneath you. And what is it like in this moment to be supported? And you might stay right here where you are, or if it feels good, let your knees fall into your chest and start to stir your legs around, adding in any intuitive movements that feel good here. Do you prefer to move slower or faster? Notice your head and neck. How would they like to move or be still? You might stay right here or in some way or another, make your way up to seated. And as though you have all the time in the world, come onto your hands and your knees, maybe your forearms and your knees. Or if you're working from a chair, you can bring your hands to the back of the chair and press your weight into there so that you find some way that balance and support can be present for you. And what if in this moment there was nothing you had to fix or change? That you could just start to move your spine around and enjoy what is it like to have a spine. Knowing you're not restricted to the shapes that I'm making, to make any shapes that start to feel good for you. Noticing what it's like to continue breathing. And taking a few breaths here on purpose to savor. Would you like to keep making the shape you're in or try a different one? And you can stay here, or if you'd like, come along with my cueing and extend one leg out long behind you. And then start to circle your pelvis around. And again, if you're doing this on a chair, you can extend your leg out and have a little bend and roll around that way. And so you might see here what it's like to even roll your foot around and stretch your toes out. Our feet are our first point of balance, our first connection to the earth. And you might feel what it's like to have the land underneath your feet. When you're ready, go ahead and put your foot or your knee back underneath your hip and drop to one forearm. If you're working at a chair, let your forearm rest on the lip of the chair. And give yourself a hug with your other arm. You might just take a breath here, especially if you haven't had enough hugs lately, just to enjoy what it's like to receive touch and receive a hug supported by the land. Stay here, or when you're ready, start to take that arm that's hugging you and let your rib cage press into it and start to turn out to the side and come on back to center. Whatever pace works for you here is perfect. And you might bring in some of your humanity into this by turning your head first and noticing what's around you and letting your ribs and spine follow. Our bodies like to move where our gaze goes. And when we find beings who are supportive around us, it can enhance that movement. And so just noticing who's around you. And when you're ready, let your hand drop. And in some way, take a few breaths in any shape you'd like to rest a few moments touching the earth. And an easy, softer, slower breath in. Let it go. You could stay right here, or if you'd like, come on back up onto hands and knees or holding on to the back of your chair. And extend your other leg out. And start moving around that ankle, letting your foot roll around in space. Maybe trying another direction, feeling the sole of your foot touching the ground. If you want to feel grounded, touch the ground. Maybe you're staying right there, or if you'd like, drop your knee back down. And then from here, rest your other forearm on the earth, or maybe the back of that chair lip. And take your other arm, and as best you can, give yourself a hug on this side. And take a moment to really absorb that touch, that feeling of that touch and that hug. And when you're ready, start to turn your hug out to the side, and back down, whatever pace works for you. But maybe you let your gaze start to turn and find something to look at, someone. So I've got my nopalito friend here. And try maybe once more. And when you're ready, come on back up. And however you'd like, take a few moments that help you recalibrate in any shape that you'd like. Easier, softer, sweeter breath in, this gift from the air. Exhale the reciprocity of giving back. And when you're ready, find a position of great comfort to you in this moment. Maybe seated, perhaps lying down, or perhaps right now you'd like to stand or maybe even walk. However you do this is perfect. And then take a moment and look around. Notice where you are. What is it like to be in this time that's called now, in this place that's called here? Noticing colors, shapes, and textures. Noticing who is with us here. And you might even say, hello. Hello, friend. And then as you're looking around, you might take your hand and start to reach to find something to touch. And sometimes when we start to look around and reach, it starts to turn into a yawn and a stretch. So if that's happening for you, you might follow that intuitive instinct. Just letting yourself be human. And I wonder if something else could capture your attention to reach for. What it would be like to maybe even pick it up and touch it. Maybe it wants to go somewhere else, so you reach and stretch out and set that somewhere else. Take a little bit more time to notice the beings and textures around you and to reach for them, and to notice what it's like to receive them. And you could continue reaching, or maybe you let that go and let your gaze get really soft and fuzzy, or if it feels good, maybe close your eyes and call forward your sense of hearing. And I wonder if your body responds to far away sounds. If your body responds to nearby sounds. If your body responds to human sounds. If your body responds to sounds from the more than human world. And you might start to breathe a little out loud so that you add the sound of your own breath to the landscape. And I wonder if you continue to sense your exhale, if you notice how your body responds. What if over these next few breaths, you could just be okay? And You could stay here or come back to the feeling of your body, and you might let it sway a little side to side, almost like you were a tree catching the breeze. You might add your legs in some way, or maybe your arms, as though they're also part of this organism. Noticing how the wind carries you, how the air touches you, and responding. What you're doing might be really different from what I'm doing, and that's perfect. And I wonder if you can sense which way is the east, where the sun rises and the moon rises. And I wonder if we turn our bodies towards the east, sensing that element of air, how we might continue to move as air. Noticing even fingers and toes catching that breeze. And start to sense. Don't even worry about being accurate, but start to sense which way is south, where the sun travels along the horizon. And bringing forth the elements of fire. I wonder for you in this moment, what would it be like to move as fire? Maybe you're a great wildfire connecting to all the land out here in the west. Or maybe you're just a single candle flame, somewhere in between. This moment, what is it like to move as fire? If you watch and pay attention to your breath, does that change the movement of what it's like to move as though you were fire? Feel free to stay right there, continuing to connect to fire, light, and shadow. Or turn your body to find which way is west to you, where the sun and the moon set. And begin to notice the element of water. I wonder what it's like to move as though you're water, which in fact you are. 60 to 70% of you water, so that you are more river and lake and ocean than perhaps you are even human. What does it mean for you to move as though you're water? You might stay here, or once again turn your body until you find what feels like north to you. Bringing in the sense of rock and mountain, earth and soil. What might it be like to embody earth, soil, and rock? To feel bones of ancestors moving through you. When you're ready, taking a longer, slower, easier breath in, letting it go. Once again, start to move your head side to side. And I wonder what happens if you look for something interesting. Does that change how you move your head side to side? Close your eyes if you like. Does that change how you move your head? You could stay with that or start to move your head gently up and down. You might let your eyes track something to look at here. Maybe you close your eyes and sense the movement. You could stay with that or maybe add in some jaw movement so that as you're moving your head up and down, you start to move your lower jaw backwards and forwards, like you're making an underbite and an overbite. And for me, this is where I start yawning quite a bit. And you could stay with that or tilt your head side to side. Now I wonder what happens if we move our eyes in the diagonal and then down, off to the side and up, and then turning our gaze down and letting our head follow there. Or you might close your eyes and get lost in the movement. And then from here, take your finger pads or maybe like a leaf around you, something that can have a little bit of texture. I'm going to grab one of these mesquite pods and go ahead and start to scratch the back of your neck. And this is to start to get sensation through the nape of your neck, where you have all these sensory neurons that are eyes in the back of your head. So if you've ever, seen a mountain lion and the hairs on the back of your neck stood up, these are the same little receptors. And if it feels good, you might even start to scratch your head. And starting to wake up all of those receptive neurons. And I wonder if there's something to savor by receiving this touch. And then when you're ready, let that go. And move your head around side to side again. And I wonder if it's the same or different maybe. Knowing that either one of those, whether it's the same or different, is perfect. You're a human and your head is moving. And then you could stay with that or interlace your fingers and bring them back behind your head until you find your occipital ridge where your skull starts to turn into your neck. And then bring your pinkies back behind it and let your elbows move towards each other. They might be down here really low, and that's perfect. And then start to let your head lift up and over your pinkies. And maybe you look up and notice the sky. You might notice the gift of shade. And then you might use your hands to gently guide your head, feeling what it's like to have a head on top of a neck. And maybe as you guide your head with your hands, you get to start to see more of the beings right behind you. Oh, there's some hummingbirds here. And maybe you let your elbows come together, and with the gentle weight of your back of your hands, you let your head drop and receive the gift of an inhale from the air. And offer that reciprocity back out. And you can let your arms drop and feel what it's like to shrug your shoulders a few times. Would it feel nice to let your ribs move along with this? Or would they like to hold still? Or do they just hold still because that's what they do? And then roll your shoulders another direction, and maybe you'll get your arms involved and maybe even your fingers, remembering that you're a primate and can grab and reach. And then when it feels good to you, come and sit on your right hip. So if you're sitting in a chair, you would have your right hip right at the edge of the chair. You can also stack up some blankets or sit on the side of a rock if that gives you a little bit more sense of feeling like you're in the position you want to be in. And then with your opposite hip, the one that's up a little higher, let it start to float forward and up and down and back, moving at your pace. And what if you could embody one of those elements again, as though just underneath your skin there was earth, fire, or water, or air, or maybe some combination. Next time your hip goes forward, shrug your shoulder up. Let your hip drop. Let your shoulder drop. Letting your hip float forward. Shrug your shoulder up, almost like you're dancing, and you could turn this into a dance move. Let your hip drop. Let your shoulder drop. Keep going at your pace. You might again embody one of those elements. Perhaps you even close your eyes and get lost in the movement. And what if you were inhabiting the body of your very best friend right now? And you could stay with that, or you could let your hand, if you're on your right hip, let your left hand track a little off to the left and then slouch. And feel the gift of the air and inhale, pull your chest into that, like you're smelling something wonderful, and you might even let the breeze travel into your nostrils. Soften in, perhaps an exhale. Perhaps you let that inhale lift you up and find something to smell. Keep going at your pace. And maybe you add a reach with this, as though you could find what you're smelling and grab it. And maybe you have grabbed it. Maybe you bring it in to smell. Or maybe you reach for something else and bring it in to notice, does it have a scent? There's a little finch right overhead who's playing along with us. You could set the being down if you've grabbed one. And as though there were no such thing as time, find your way to your left hip. And you might notice anticipation of the other side. What would it be like in this moment if the next thing were just receiving another breath from the air? You could stay here in that reciprocity of offering and receiving, exhale and inhale. Or let the movement of your right hip now start to travel with your breath, hip moving forward and dropping back. And just like I've done, if something in the soundscape around you captures your attention, feel free to look and wonder, to allow curiosity to be a part of your humanity. And you could stay with that, or maybe you add that dance shoulder in, shrugging your shoulder up as your hip goes up, letting your hip drop as your shoulder drops. Hip lift, shoulder lift, hip drop, shoulder drop. Make these your own. Perhaps embodying an element once again. You could stay with that, or once again start to reach and find something. Bring it back, and perhaps there's a smell. And you could stay savoring that smell, or maybe your hip floats up and you find something else to reach for. Perhaps looking, or maybe even listening. Maybe you scratch or find some way to notice the sound. And as you're ready, come back to this position and notice that once again, the air is your ally, waiting for you with the gift of another breath. Savor a few breaths. And when you're ready, as though you have all the time in the world, come back to lying down. If you're sitting in a chair, you can also do this. And you would just imagine that, imagine that there's a chair right under me, so that's what that would look like here. Reach your arms out to the sides. And from here, take your left hand and start to sweep it over until you find your right hand. Let your body do whatever it needs to do to find that. Reach just a little further past, and then trace your finger pads along. Maybe your shirt is here, maybe your skin is here. Trace your fingers across your arm, your heart, and let that open out to the other side, letting your head follow and maybe even your knees sway along. And you can find stillness there or keep moving that way, letting your left arm drift and your body respond lazy and easy. And introducing the sense of touch, feeling your finger pads and the textures, touching your heart, and finding the other direction. Keep going at your pace with an invitation to savor. Whenever you're ready, let your left arm come up and overhead if you can. If that's not available, what if on your belly, or maybe you just feel like having your hand on your belly. And then from there, let your knees swivel side to side. And noticing, would your head like to move along? Now, are there any intuitive movements that you're making with your arms, or would they like to hold still? Whenever you're ready, come back to center, wherever that is for you right now. Take a few breaths, as though in this very moment, all is okay. Receive the gift of an inhale. Offer the gift of an exhale. Let your arms come out to the side once again, and now take your right arm, reach over to your left, and let your body do whatever it does to bring your arm over. And then begin to trace your fingers along the inside of your left arm, touching your heart and opening back out. You can trust yourself here. You can trust the support of the earth below you. You might sense the temperature of the air and how your body is responding to that. You might stay here letting your heart be touched, or place your right hand on your belly, or your heart, or overhead. And once again, in this position, let your legs sway side to side. And sensing if your body would like to respond in any particular way. And if you like, you might find a seat, or maybe lay all the way down, or maybe you continue to walk around gently. And we'll take in some moments to breathe. Notice the feeling of the earth below us, the air around us. You might keep your eyes open and watch the world. If you prefer to close your eyes, by all means do so. I'll stop talking in just a moment. Wherever you are, feel the weight and density of your legs. Noticing what it's like to have legs. Sense that you have arms. Feeling their density and volume. Feeling how your arms are supported, even if just by air. Sense that you have a spine and torso. And feel the length of your torso and its volume. And sense the support systems for your torso. Sense that you have a head and a neck. Feel the weight and density of your head and neck. And sense the way that your head and neck are supported in this moment. Feel your whole body. Sense your whole body and all the ways that your whole body is supported in this moment. There's nowhere you have to go. There's nothing you have to do. Rest on the land. Sense the support of the earth below you. And sense the air waiting to give you another breath in. And feel that breath supporting all of your life. You could stay in the position that you're in, or as though you have all the time in the world. You might join me in a seat. And in whatever shape you found yourself, once again looking around and noticing who you're with. Letting your gaze linger just a little bit longer, as though you're seeing this place for the very first time. And if you'd like, you might put a hand on your heart, maybe offering one hand out in a gesture of receptivity and reciprocity to the earth, the air, the water, the fire, and the space. To all the lives and the ancestors who labored and lost so that we might share this time together. May we be nourished. May the land nourish us. Thank you so much. Gracias a todo. And thank you to Corazon Latino for supporting this, and to all of our beautiful national public lands. Thank you.